Well, this is your very own Saba here at the Tikkun Elevator Kollel. No longer going by name, but I mess up sometimes. So I'm trying to learn how to do this Saba deal, and we're working on that. And where are we here? Oh, find this. There it is. We are in Parshas Vayakhel. Now, Vayakhel is a very, very long piece. So much so that Pekudi, which is a partner to Vayakhel, which is this year we're going to do both, is not in this particular volume. I have to go to the second volume, but we'll handle that. Now, if you know anything about Parsha Vayakhel, it's really talking about all of the different things that are put into the Mishkan, how it's made, it's constructed, how Moshe put it together, so on and so forth. All of this and the detail of that, all of that. Come over to the Zohar and it says something goes a different direction. And let's see what the direction is that the Zohar goes on. It says, Vayakhel Moshe has called Adas B'nai Yisrael. So this is the quote that Moshe gathered together all the congregation of Israel. And he said to them, Elu hadavarnim ashatziv Hashem. These are the things that Hashem commanded you, to do them. So he says, okay, that's the pasuk. Says the Frisch pasuk there, Rebbe Chia pasuk. So looking at the sod, because understand that what these people look at, they're able to see to a certain extent, how it's possible into Olam Atzilus, which is the formation of the first place where we can recognize. That's the important idea, because as one gets closer to the Ein Sof is nothing, and as you get closer and closer to that nothingness, which is the beginning of everything, el principio de todo in Spanish, it becomes very thin, impossible to see because there's virtually nothing there. But in Atzilus, we have the beginning of organization. So he said, Rabbi Chia Pasa began to speak like this. V'yomer Sh'ul el Hakeni. So now it goes a different direction. He says, let's take this pasuk. Yishmuel said to the Keni, L'chud suru radu. Go, turn away and go down. Now, what does that mean? He said, go down mitoch Amaleki. So he meant turns away, get down from the Amalekim. Apparently, it sounds like the Amalekim were living in a high place. Pirush, he fired Amalek. So, now here we're talking here. So we got a little bit of, separate yourself from the people of Amalek. Pen osivcho imo be'es achrimhem. So when I devastate them, stay away from them, because that's what's going to happen. V'es milchama, because of the time of the war. It's impossible to say. This is what happens. They call the fog of war. It's impossible to say who's being killed. And he says like this, come and see. What's written about Malek? I noticed. All right, Bekadati. Let's see what Bekadati means. I looked and I saw what Amalek did, the Yisrael. Pirush Zohar, I remember. As Amalek, the Yisrael, Amalek did to the Jewish people, when he was bringing us up out of Eretz Mitzrayim. So now I want to visit him, to appoint V'Lashalem, and to pay him his just reward. So therefore go. V'Hakisas Amalek, and strike Amalek. V'Harumachem as Kol Shelo, and take as prize everything he has. V'Hikshe Akudshe Barichu. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu says a question. V'Kudshe Barichu Hu B'Kulu Kravim Da'avdei V'Shar Amavim L'Gabaychel D'Yisrael. Let's see what this means. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which normally means Zeranpin, but it means at any rate the giver. HaKadosh Baruch Hu B'Kolchem B'Mechamos Sha'aso Shar Haluma. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in all of the rest of the wars, The rest of the wars that he did with other nations, with the nations of the Canaanite, in Yisrael, Moshe, even at the time of Moshe, say for example, Milchamas Kanani, Melech Arad, or Milchamas Sichon V'og. So all of those things, these ones, it was a set this thing about Amalek differently. My time alone actually can make Gahai carve the oven the mullet the Gabayhu. Now I'm having a little trouble with Akshay Kameh. Akshay Miss Lashon Kasha. It's hard for him. Now what does he mean by that? Ma hatam shalo choya kosher be'enav. Why was it not difficult for Hashem? Kamilchama zu, like this milchama we're talking about. Sha'asach Amalek im Yisrael, that Amalek started up with us. Ad sha'amar l'shul, then he said to Shul HaMelech, lech v'hake es Amalek, go and strike them down. What makes that different? I'm not sure exactly what the difference is. Let's see if I could figure it out as we go along. So here's the answer. Because it's a difference. In the war of Amalek, the fight was in all sides. He means from down and up, from down below and up above. Both in this world, in the physical world, where blood has to be shed, but also in the world of Atzilus, where the formation of all the influences that come into our world began. The Habahaku Zimna, because at that time, Bizman Hakusha Chatu Yisrael v'Omer Chayesh Hashem b'Kirbeinu Imlo. This is a statement that the Jewish people said. They said, Ki Bizman Haku. They committed this sin. Shachatu Yisrael, this Jewish people sinned. V'Omer Chayesh Hashem b'Kirbeinu, is there Hashem, is in our midst? Im Ein, if he's not. So that's actually a form of kafros, of denying Hashem. I mean, could it be possible he's not here? He is here. Hashem is in everything. Is takaf chivir bisha le'ela. When they said this, it strengthened the evil snake up above. Nizgaver hanakash hara. Shehi klaus klipa, which refers to all of the general idea of the klipa itself. It means falseness, something that is attached to the Yetzer Hara, only the physicalness. The klipa l'mala l'kon is the makom kadosh, the ktarak of Yisrael, in order to be able to criticize the Jews, to knock us down. We are constantly being knocked down. But when we open ourselves to the other side, then it's easier for them to criticize it, knock us down, murder us, and massacre us. V'istakif the sata v'dizgaver of the mata, and it becomes more powerful down below. But through this Amalek makes it stronger. Lil Chom in Yisrael bepoil mamish, to actually work and go against the Jews. It's like similar to a snake. What's like a snake? He said, let's think of a sake. This is Amalek, he says. 1 second, I gotta drink. Trying to get a little coffee. It always clogs up my throat. So let's go over this. So he says, Ki ma chivya bisha. What do we know about the evil snake? Kamin al parshas archen. He said, Kamin. What does that mean? Ma nachash hara, this evil snake, or if he lives in ambush. Al parshas adrachim, in places where roads meet. Lahara b'nei adam, in order to kill people. Of Hacha, also here Nami. Amalek Chivyabish, Amalek is like the evil snake. Chava l'gabaycho the Yisrael, in regards to the Jews. Became Amalek Choya Kanacha Shara Keneged Yisrael. The common law that he's lied in ambush for us. Al Parshas Archim, as we were passing through the different, they used to call it a four-way, where roads met and intersected. That's where you find the snake. Sha'arav lechem, because he ambushed them, he laid in wait for them. Al parshas drachim dechsiv asher sam lo b'derek ba'alosa b'mitzrayim, and there he was placed on the road. Pirush ki sham lo, they placed him. Ba'aravim, in ambush, v'chelos b'derech, with his army on the way. Kamosha Targum Yonason, like Yonason came and said, the common lay ba'orcha. Apparently this word common means to lie in wait, to ambush. V'hoy yechadayim b'derech l'lechas the Eretz Canaan, and so we were still trying to get to Eretz Canaan. V'lo choy b'makom yishuv, and we were not in a civilized place, we're in the desert. Common hava la'ela l'sa'ava b'mikdasha. Orev koyel lamalo the tamechas mikdash, so he was ambushing from up above. I'm not sure what he's getting at here. The tamechas mikdash, to make tuma in the holy places. Kolomar, the grom pagam b'malchus de la'elach hanikvas mikdash, and his goal is what? To reach into Olam Atzilus, to the malchus of Atzilus, and make it Tomei, HaNikra Mikdash. And that place of Malchus here, he says, is called the Mikdash. Ukamin, Okamen, Hava, the Sata, the Sa'ava, the Yisur, and at the same time that was his ultimate goal. Va'arav the Mata, and he lie in wait, in ambush, the Mata. The Tama is Yisrael, to be metamet the Jewish people, the hashlit bechem haklipa v'lahachtiim, in order to bring them the klipa and to cause them to sin. Now we know that in the previous parsha we had the concept of the Egel Zohar, of the golden calf. When people, this is a teaching of Rabbi Nachman, when people lose hope, then they could go out and do anything, just to make themselves feel better for an instant. So he says, Manala, what do we know? The Benayim Lola AMALEK Tima as Yisrael. How do we know that AMALEK actually caused tumah in the Jews? Because he was out there, and here they're going to play on this word karachol, that he happened upon you along your road. So Shatime Osam Bakir B'Mikra Laila, that he made them tame by exciting them so that they did not mate with their female counterpart, but instead had what we call a nocturnal emission, for lack of a better word. Ki karacho hu lashon tuma, because karach is a lashon carry. Carry is called a nocturnal emission. V'raya ledavar, and there's a proof to this. Ki dechsiv hacha asher karacho v'chsiv hasam, and it's also written over the key yihya b'ka ish asher lo yihya tahor mikra laila. He says, Ma mikra, this word mikra, which we translated simply as happen along. One second, I got to hold this shear right here. I've got a call coming. Okay, so I really had my son called me. He lives in New Jersey. We had a nice talk. So I'm back to the Zohar again. Try to get someplace over here. We're talking about AMALEK. One obvious question is that what does AMALEK have to do with this parsha? I don't know. The parsha goes in many different places, but it is mostly about what went into the construction of the Mishkan. So this line here says, "Kamen havela ela l'sa'ava mikdasha." Mikdasha is another way of saying the Mishkan. So kamen haba, he was lying in wait, in ambush. Also, the malach that is coming from the upper worlds, that is the malach of the samach mem. He says, comes down the sa'ava mikdasha. It comes and manifests ourselves in this world too. Orev koya lamala the tamechas mikdash. So he was lying in wait, not just down below for us, but also in the Olam of Atzilus. It was near there to be able to try to attack that. to the Malchus of Atzilus. Kolomer, the Grom Pagam Malchus, the Laela, that is the upper Malchus, Anikras Mikdash. The man Chavach of a common Chavach of the Sad of the Sa'ava, the Yisrael, also down below, of the Ara of the Mata, also the same time that this happened down below. In other words, he's saying like this is a string that is attached to each other. There's an attachment both in this world and in the origins of reality is where he comes from and wants to attack. The Tama is the hashlit bechem l'klipa v'l'hachtiam, to bring onto them, to bring the control over them with false ideas. L'hachtiam. So he says, Aminal, and where do we know that Minayim Lano Shal Molek Tima Es Yisrael? So how do we know that he actually came and was able to be Matama, the Jewish people? Because it says, this was where we were before. That happened to you along the derek. What did he do? He causes them to have what we call shvichus zera levatala, waste their semen without intercourse. Ki karcho hu lashon tuma, it's the language of tuma. Varaya the davar. So here's a proof to this, and this is where we stop. Siv chocho asher karcho, that happened to you along the way. That pasuk. V'chsiv chosam ki yihya b'ka ish asher lo yihya tahar mikra laila, and it says also. Ma mikra shal sham, so the word mikra that it talks about there, this they happened upon you. Who tuma refers to tuma, their idea, and this was the idea then, and this is the idea now. And some of it could be called, well, pornography, let's say, for example, or the exploitation of women who submit to this. So he says, Ak karacha dekan lashon tuma, to matame. Now, in other places in Kabbalah, it tells us that carry is a sin. Carry, the shvich zer lebatala, wasting your seed, which is common, is one of the worst things could possibly happen because it causes a non-wedding. It leads to, maybe it leads to homosexuality because that's what happens there. It is male and female that things have to work. And that's what carry does. It separates the letter Vav from the final letter Hey. So he says, V'yakar hu lashon carry betuma. He says, Kolomer shuhu nitma betuma hahi sharatza laham shekal yisrael. That there was a certain type of tuma that was represented by this really strict and very severe tuma called carry. Ki Bilam choyed doimed b'doimed l'Amalek. So Bilam was like a little bit like Amalek. V'yoser kosher b'mena, but he was worse than Amalek. Ki Amalek lo hoya yachol la'ora es a klipa, that Amalek was not really able to arouse the klipa, that is the false concept that leads to war and violence. Elahoya kli muchanakach, he was really at a kli that was prepared for this. Aval Bilam, that's Amalek, he says. Aval Bilam choya rodef achra samach mem, but Bilam was not waiting for this tumah to come to him. He was actually outside trying to get it, to reach it. So he says that choya rodef, he ran after the samach mem, the bekom lomala, and he tried to arouse the samach mem to cause a lesion up above, a stroke against up above, Kadei Sheyuchul La'akar as Yisrael Lamata, in order to be able to uproot the Jewish people down below. He understood that it wasn't just that he needed to smear tuma on us, which he did, and we fell for it too, if you remember the story. But he actually actively, in the case of Bilam, went out to try to get the tuma and bring it down. If you say like this, Ha Ksiv Yakar Elokim as El Bilam, and Hashem Yakar Elokim doesn't carry again. There's the same letters as carry. Elokim El Bilam to Bilam. Shu Shem Kadosh Elokim, holy name. Mashma shekodesh Baruch Hu b'dibur imo, and it's mashma from that the Kodesh Baruch Hu, that in the form of Elokim, which means din, and on the left side, punishment, he actually communicated with the world beyond. Enu kach elakucha barichu azmin lehachu asa the misava ista'avabe. And he translate this Elam, HaKodesh Baruch Hu, the giver of all givers, Hanikra Elokim, in the sense of calling an Elokim, which, as I said before, represents the side of din. Hikra Lefanav, or let's say Hikra Lefanav as Mako Matuma Lahadmos. He made for him Hakara Lefanav, it appeared before him the place of the Tuma, to be able to reach it, the Mos, both to be able to, I think he means to make himself that way, and to Bo, Bahahu Darga Deihu Isdevek Lista'avabe, and that level, Ba'osach Madrega Shuhu Nizdavek, that Bilam was able to be Miznabek Bo. The reason for it, Lahat Mos Bo, to become Tame with it. He wanted to become, that's what it sounds like this, the Hitamos Bo. It doesn't say the Hitamos bomb. To make the Jews, to make himself the agent of Tuma. See if there's any more else we could do. This is 24 minutes according to what I have, and this is your very own Saba at the Tikkun Elevator Kolo.